This is my Peppa Pig Pizza website. It's a design taken from my last programming assignment. I've just ported it over into web design. So first of all, I've designed it in such a way that it can be resized. So it's compatible with nearly every device and every screen size I've tested it on. Little basket animations, and the buttons animate as well. Custom radio button selection screen. For the toppings, I've done the same as the last assignment where I can limit the selection to only 5. And after each order, it clears the form for a fresh order. These little eyes show allergy advice, like dairy products, or it contains fish. I was going to put ingredients for the pizzas, but I didn't have time. Dessert page is pretty simple. It's the same. And you can either click orders to go to your basket or click the basket. The total gets shown at the end, and I can individually remove each item, and the price gets deducted from the total each time as well. And even shows when the basket's completely empty. Let's just add a couple of things. This button doesn't work, obviously, it's not a real website, but all these links work for the PayPal and the Just Eat and the Uber Eats and my Facebook and Twitter accounts, and also an email which opens up the default email program you have on your computer. And all these links work, and they open up new tabs. Okay, and that's pretty much it. This is my HTML for Peppa Pig Pizza website. Set the encoding to UTF-8. I have initial scaling to 1, which helps scale the website to any screen size, so it shows full size, not just a portion of the screen of the website. I have Robust No Index to stop Google trawling my website, as I have it hosted now. And it's not a non-functioning website, so it'll be pointless to have it on Google. I have a custom icon in the corner. I have my custom font, Google font, Roboto. All my images have alt text and descriptions, and the same with all my links. They all for accessibility reasons. As I don't have internal pages on my website, it's just the panel swaps. I initiate the panel swaps with these functions, which are on the buttons themselves. So instead of links, they're just listeners or event listeners. Everything else is pretty standard. I got my select options from my drop down menus. And I have my hover events on these little icons here. everything's obviously repeated 6 times for each page and for each panel. Okay, so in the orders panel, these divs are created dynamically and inserted inside these divs depending on which items being ordered. So if I was to click on a milkshake order, it would create this div inside here, inside the drinks items ordered. And I can show that in the inspect. This is the order HTML that's created and inserted inside here. If I was to add more, you can see them being created and also deleted. All these are working links for just the takeaway icons. I have a link to my own Facebook, my own Twitter, and this opens up the default email client for the PC or any mobile device. And the phone number also opens up the default telephone app. I'm on my computer, so I don't have it. And that's it for the HTML. Oh, I've got my link to my JavaScript at the below the footer, but just before the end of the body tag. My style sheet is nothing special about this. It's just I have a lot of transparency, a lot of border radiuses, a lot of box shadows. I have a hover and focus animation for the button, so that's the hover, and the focus just creates the little box around. These data tooltips is for these information icons, which gives the allergy advice. I should get them centered. Everything else is pretty standard. Yeah, it's a nice little basket animation. So when an order is added, it adds one to the basket and gives it a little wobble. And these are just my keyframes for the wobble. And that's it. This is my JavaScript. Okay, my website is not made up of many linked pages, but it's one page with many panels. And the default panel that's visible is the pizza panel. And all the other panels are set to none. So when I click on one of these buttons, it calls this function, say the pizza function, and it changes the style of the container div to flex or not. The reason I have it all on one page is because of the way I've designed the JavaScript. As I have a lot of variables that I want to keep. I didn't know how to use the local storage or cookies, so I just did it a simpler way and kept it all on one page. So the JavaScript doesn't get refreshed and I lose all my data. It's a kind of a cheat. But of course, I can't use the back button. I can't use these navigation buttons, as it will just take you back to the last website you were on. So on the pizza picker page, this gets the element by its ID and creates this variable of this sort of div. So I think it's waiting for this button click event of this button here. It stores the size and the source, and it takes the size and sets the price based on the size. And then this line builds the array, which then pushes to the pizza object I've initiated up here. This function adds 1 to the basket, increments 1 each time it's clicked. This is what this function creates the actual order on the order page. It creates this whole div based on what's inputted here, and then the basket animation. And this is the same for each panel, so there's 6 of them, and they're all slightly custom. They all have their own button names, and their individual names are already inputted into the code itself, rather than pulling it from the HTML. Okay, custom pizza panel is just slightly different, as it has to query all the checkboxes on the page. Well, each section of the checkboxes. So this is the size selection, and it will grab the selected value, and store it in size. The same for the base and the source and all the toppings. All the toppings are collected as an array, and each selection of up to 5 gets stored in a temporary object, which is initiated here. And then then it will push everything in the temporary object to the top, so the toppings object, which is another one. Scrap that last bit. So, and each array in the temp object will be pushed to the tops object, and then that will create a 2D array. Again, the price is dependent on the size of the pizza, and like above, this creates an array of key value pairs and pushes them to the custom object. This clears the temporary object of the topping selections, so they're not added to the next order. So you get a blank slate. And as above, it increments the basket number by 1, creates the custom divs on the order page. This one clears all the selected radio buttons and checkboxes, when I add the order, so it makes it fresh. And the basket animation. And this is the code that basically just clears all the checkboxes and sets them all to false. And the same with the toppings, and this limits the topping selection to 5 maximum. So it keeps querying the length of the array of all the selections, and when that hits 5, it will not allow any more selections until they're one click. So on the drinks pages and the dessert page is pretty the same as the pieces up above. Creates them the exact same way. The price based on the size pushes this array to the object. Now this is where the magic happens. So when the function create pizza container is called, it starts this part of the code, which queries the div it wants to be inserted into. So in the HTML, you have these empty divs. So this selector is selecting this div, and everything here will be inserted between this div and the end. And yeah. So, and okay, I'll talk about the identifier in a moment. Well, it basically enumerates each one of these order boxes, these order divs. So each one has its own unique number based on where it is in the queue and on the line, or so this bit of code, it just clears the whole container just for the pizza part. So it'll clear everything out of here every time an order is submitted. And it will rebuild this little line. Helps. So when this dynamically created div is created, it will add join the next loop instead of erasing that each time. It will just add on to the end. So it will just keep adding on to the end. If it was just a equal sign, it would delete, just like here. It would just replace everything inside that container with whatever this value is at the moment. This one clears, but this one adds. Okay, these are all very similar. Okay, this function literally adds up all the arrays within each object. It adds up each length and then appends the length number to the basket. This part keeps track of the cost, the total price at the end. Each price of each type of order will be kept in these variables. So each one of these functions has a for loop. So for the pizza object, it will loop the length of the pizza object. It will clear the temporary away, or it will clear everything out of the object because the values seem to multiply like rabbits when I don't. The map feature loops through each object array and then sends each value or price to the temporary object up here, and it will do that for every object. And then it will append total cost of each object to these values here. And then this code adds up all the totals, appends them to this variable, and then inserts them into here basically. And it creates this HTML. Which is this. And it also creates these buttons, which I think disappear when this toFixed keeps the decimal points to 2. So it only displays 2 decimal points, just like your currency. These are just to trigger the basket animations. This little bit of code. I'm not sure how this works, but without it won't reset the animation. It will do the animation once and once only. I think that's because I don't refresh my code. My JavaScript never gets refreshed, so it will only do this function once unless I use this offset. So when I have an order in the basket and I click this button to remove items, it sends the custom or identifier to this function, which then it literally removes the HTML. It removes the whole div, and that's what this does. It just removes that, deletes that HTML. That's dynamically created. This is the same for all the others. And I think that's everything. Thank you.